Loretto. This is early for snowstorms, so let's hope this is a freak. I know we're going to be getting a little bit more snow next week. I'd love it if we can wait until after Thanksgiving to really get some serious snowfall. But as the old expression goes, everybody complains about weather and nobody does anything about it. So guys, we're going to be diving back into Chapter 5 today. After that, we're into Chapter 6 and we're on to our second test. Just as a reminder, guys, is our final in this class cumulative? No. It is not. That's like your holiday present. You don't have to study for a big final, and we'll review for all this stuff like it's a normal test. But, as it looks like Christmas out there, and we're heading toward one of the biggest shopping days of the year, a lot of stores are already starting to announce what their big Black Friday deals are going to be. Guys, here's my question for you. A lot of stores now are saying, why wait till Friday? Let's open on Thanksgiving itself. A lot of stores are doing that. What is your opinion about stores being open on Thanksgiving? What do you think?
I don't think that's good. One, because then workers can't experience the holiday with their family, and then two, people are going to try to put shopping over their holidays being with their family.
I tend to agree with you. Does anybody agree or disagree with this statement? That Black Friday is a bad thing. Seth, you're nodding your head. What's your opinion?
I agree with them.
So, does anybody disagree? Does anybody like going out shopping on Thanksgiving? I'm not going to judge you either way. So, do you actually go on Thanksgiving Day? Night? So,
I think that's what
how early is too early? What's
after it's like super late. Well, after all the family stuff. It's still like
It's kind of like 8, 9 p.m., somewhere in there? Okay. Anybody else do the actual Thanksgiving shopping? I think it's interesting because it used to be Black Friday, for example, was always the biggest retail day of the year, the biggest single retail day of the year. It is no longer the biggest retail day of the year. What day is? Does anybody know? What is it?
Cyber Monday.
Cyber Monday. The Monday after, when everybody said, well, what didn't I get when I went out for those door-busting deals? We all get online at the same time. It's really interesting, though, when we think about retailers at this time of the year. When I say retailers, I'm talking business-to-consumer folks. We're talking about folks like Kohl's. We're talking about folks like Target, JCPenney, all the old traditional retailers. How many of you know what percentage of their total receipts for the year come from the holiday season? Take a guess. Out of 100% of all the sales that are made during the holidays, out of 100% of all sales that are made during the year, what percentage for most retailers comes during the holiday season? Any guesses? Yes.
45%.
You're not far off. It's a little lower, but not much. One more guess. Yes. It's actually around 33%. But when you think about it, that's 3 out of every $10 comes from one season of the year. There are retailers, for example, who might be right on the edge this year and who may or may not make it based on whether or not they have a strong holiday season. So keep your eyes open. By the way, if you had to think of retailers who you are surprised are still around, who would make that list? Who are companies that you're surprised still exist? Yes?
Mattress Firm.
Yeah, that's one too. I don't know why that company's still around either, but it seems like mattress stores and drugstores seem to pop up everywhere, and I guess everybody sleeps. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, and they keep on popping up. What's another chain that you're surprised is still around in 2019? I'm surprised JCPenney's still around. That's like the classic store of grandmothers everywhere. Like your grandma will buy you a gift certificate from JCPenney. Has anybody's grandparents ever gotten them something from Penny's? That was like the big deal. When I was a kid, by the way, this time of year was like the time of year you couldn't wait for it, not just because it was Christmas, but what came out every year, JCPenney released their Christmas catalog. And before the internet, that's when all the cool toys and electronics and stuff, that's how you found out about all that stuff. So, is there any other retailers you're surprised are still around? I'm surprised there's still some Kmarts hanging around. Who here has ever had the experience of shopping in a Kmart? All right, well, will somebody share with me what it was like shopping in a Kmart? Yes. Tell me why.
Dirty. Organized.
That's a pretty good description. I would make it akin to an archaeological dig. You know, for example, a couple of years back, my wife and I bought a new flat screen TV, and I needed a stamp for it, so I got on Google and did the local search and said, where can I get a nice looking stamp for cheap? And and this one came up that was perfectly my price range, looked exactly how I wanted it to look. It was black with some brushed chrome, very nice. And it said Kmart. I'm like, really? This is my local Kmart? So I went to Kmart, and it was kind of like, have any of you ever seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? Or any of those old adventure movies? It's kind of like you walk in, and it's like this cavern, and there's booby traps everywhere, and there's cobwebs, and you sort of have to find your way through this maze. And like there's this stack of these things in cardboard boxes, and you have to pull it up just as such, so that the whole stack doesn't come raining down on you. And I swear, I felt like I was running with a boulder behind me as I made it to the checkout counter and got this thing out. But there was no rhyme or reason to the store at all. I'm totally shocked that Kmart still exists in any way, shape, or form in 2019 and beyond. That being said, guys, here we are in the holidays. If you like to shop on Thanksgiving, more power to you. If you don't, spend more time with your family enjoying some turkey and stuffing. Guys, we're going to get started today. We left off talking about corporations. Before we dive in to some of the different types of corporations, will somebody on this side of the room tell me one advantage of forming a corporation as opposed to a partnership or a sole proprietorship? Yes?
There's more money in it.
Definitely. If you're a corporation, what's a way you can quickly raise money?
Stocks.
Absolutely correct. I'm going to go to this side of the room. Will this side of the room tell me one disadvantage of being a publicly held corporation? What's a disadvantage to the corporation itself? Yes? Tax structure for sure. Is there another one too? What about control? Who controls a corporation? You got it. Publicly traded corporations. So we started talking about traditional corporations. Wednesday we talked about something called a C Corp. The C stands for conventional. So you got a conventional corporation. C Corps are the most typical ways to set up a company. It means you can issue stock, you can make big bucks. The thing is about corporations, you can operate at a larger scale. Well, you may, for example, want to form an S corporation. Now, an S corporation is kind of interesting because on paper, it looks like a corporation. Multiple people own this thing and there's a separation to some extent of individual liability, but it's taxed like an individual company or a sole proprietorship or a partnership. It's not taxed like a traditional corporation. Here's the thing with an S Corp. It means that a group of people, 100 investors or less, have decided to form a corporation. You can only have 100 shareholders in this corporation, and the profits are only taxed as personal income. Here's some of the deals. It's a very advantageous thing if you have a small corporation to form an S Corp. No more than 100 people can be a part of the company. All of the people who form this is United States law we're talking about, have to be United States citizens. So it's a domestic corporation only, and you can only have one class of stock. Now here's another thing that goes into it. The bullet next to the bottom says we can derive no more than 25% of our income from a passive source. I don't know if any of you have ever heard the term passive source before. Has anybody heard that term? Here's what it means. Let's say, for example, I wanted to make a lot of money in New York City and not have to do a damn thing. Is there something I could own that would make money for me? Stocks for sure. I'm thinking of something physical, something flat, maybe with asphalt on it. Real estate. Parking lots. A parking lot would be an example of a passive source of income. What's it cost to park in New York City? Anybody ever, who by show of hands has ever driven in New York City? I don't reckon. So a couple of you have. Was it challenging? Yeah, absolutely. What did you pay to park? And how long did that get you? Exactly right. I remember having to pay about $75 to $95 a day to park in New York City. So if you've got a parking lot in New York City, you can make lots of money off passive income because real estate is very valuable there. Here's the deal. If you're an S Corp, you can't make more than a quarter of your income from passive sources. You can't just form a corporation with 100 people and say we're going to all make money off the parking lot and that's going to be our only form of income because you're getting a tax benefit for something that's passive. Basically, here's how it comes down to. A small group of people, less than 100, who are all U.S. citizens, who want to be taxed as an individual proprietorship or as a partnership, and still be able to own shares of stock. So there's differences in who owns percentage of the company can form an S Corp. The biggest advantages are taxation and control. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, because we're going to show you the comparison between those types of corporations as well. Who here has ever heard, I won't call on you, I just want to see if you've heard this term. Who here has ever heard LLC? Yeah, well, what an LLC is what we refer to as a limited liability corporation. Now here's the trick. It's very advantageous because you can decide how much percentage of ownership you want. You can decide how you want to divide the profits. You can do all these things, but you can't issue stock. You can still have a division between you as the individual and the corporation for liability purposes. So for example, if I have my own truck, if I haul goods and services, or I haul goods for companies and drive across the country, what kind of liability might I experience if I were not an LLC? If I'm driving my truck, I end up hitting somebody on the road. Who's liable? Yeah, the driver. If I form an LLC, I have some separation of liability between financial liability of the company, and I can still protect my individual assets. So say, for example, I form an LLC and I'm a truck driver. I can have Kent Tonkin LLC, Tonkin Trucking LLC, and I can still have my personal checking account. I can still draw a salary. I can still make sure that if I get sued for me accidentally hitting somebody with one of my trucks, that they're not necessarily taking my house. Does that make sense? In terms of the separation of liability. So it's a way basically to protect your personal interests as opposed to your business interests. So let's compare these guys to see how these things work together. Some of the disadvantages of LLCs, however, although they give you an advantage that you're not necessarily going to lose your house, you also have what we refer to as a limited lifespan because these tend to be smaller companies. They tend to be 1 or 2 people, maybe 5 or 6 at the biggest for most LLCs, although there are bigger ones. And the other disadvantages are, too, in terms of taxes. You're getting no special tax benefits, and they take paperwork to set up. So you also don't issue stock on an LLC. So let's compare these guys in terms of how these work. If you're a conventional corporation, the C stands for cookie, if you're Cookie Monster. I love that. Whoever was a Sesame Street fan as a kid? I love Sesame Street. Like, Cookie Monster makes me happy. The C is not just for cookie. Oh, the C is also for corporation. It is the highest tax rate you're going to pay is in a C Corp, but it's the highest potential for profit because C Corps, conventional corporations, tend to be the biggest. The company itself is liable at a separate level than the people who own it. If Apple really screws up, and you guys own shares in Apple, and Apple gets sued, you personally are not getting sued. There's a separation of liability and ownership. The potential for profit is the highest because you can be publicly traded and you can be as big as you want to be. Now, if you get to an S Corp, the difference with an S Corp is you can decide how you want to be taxed. Either there's a sole proprietorship or a partnership. The people who are part of your company can be no more than 100. These are also, by the way, very popular for family businesses because that's a pretty good number for a family. Your potential for profit is pretty good, and it's all based on how much of a percentage of the company you own. It's still based on shares of stock, but the stocks are not publicly traded. They're within the partners. So we could, for example, decide to trade between us. For example, if Julie and I were both members of this corporation, and you own 50 shares of stock and I own 30, and you want some of mine, you can buy it, but it has to stay within us. And then we get down to the LLC. You can choose how you want to be taxed, lowest percentage for profit. This is really a good choice for people who are doing small businesses and want to keep the liability away from their personal assets. What questions do you have, guys? All right, we're going to do a little game. Some games are fun, some games are okay. This one isn't super fun, but it's not terrible, so it's an okay game. And what I'm going to be asking you to do is to tell me what kind of corporation you think we should form. So we have a biotech firm. And we might have a cure for AIDS, which even though we have it under control in the 21st century, still kills a lot of people every year. We're a cash startup. We have a lot of cash, and we have hundreds of employees. What kind of firm, what kind of corporation do we want to form? What do you think? I would go for a C Corp as well. Your answer is correct. From this side of the room, why is C Corp the right answer here? Yes?
One, because the S Corp, you can only have 100 employees, so that's out.
Mm-hmm.
And the LLC is typically small.
Excellent answer. Now, just to clarify, on an S corp, you can have more than hundreds of employees. You can only have 100 shareholders. But you're absolutely correct. The other thing too, could this research cost us a lot of money? Yeah, we may want to go public. We may want to have an IPO to raise money. Let's talk about this one. We got a small investment firm, and we have no interest in going public. We also have no interest in having shares of stock. We still are deciding how we want to be taxed. What kind of company should we form?
LLC.
I agree. Why did you say LLC?
Because you get to pick how you're taxed, so like they don't really have to decide now, and they're also not public.
Exactly correct. You're still limiting your liability. And here we got a corporation that might be a family business, and we have 100 shareholders. Obviously, we're going to form an S corp. Absolutely correct. S for super. S for awesome. S for S corp. Guys, before we continue, because I'm in a chatty mood today, I would like to get a question from both sides of the room. A question or comment starting on this side of the room. Please, if you have not asked me a question this semester, ask me a question. What would you like to ask? I'm an open book today, guys, and I'm in a killer mood because it's Friday all day, and I'm going to a concert tonight. I can't wait. So what question would you like to ask?
Are there any large S corporations that we know?
In terms of ones that I've never been asked that question before. You asked me large C corps, I could rattle them off. If you asked me LLCs, I could rattle them off. I'd actually have to look up and see who the largest S corps are. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I apologize for that disappointing answer to your question. But here's what I will say. I will discover which one would be a large one based on your standards. So thank you for that question. Yes, sir.
What concert are you going to?
Probably a band you've never heard of. It's a band from the 90s called Incubus. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of that band. They're doing the 20th anniversary tour. They're playing their best record ever, Heinz Hall. I'm only bummed out because Tool is playing across town, and I'd rather be at the Tool show, but I already had tickets for Incubus. Luck of the draw. Question from this side of the room. What would you like to know, guys? I would like to know what you would like to know.
Where's the concert at?
I'm sorry?
Where's the concert at?
Heinz Hall.
Did you already say that?
Yeah, I did, but that's okay. Have you ever been to Heinz Hall?
No.
It's an awesome place to see a show. The acoustics are amazing. I've been to see classical music there, and I've been to see rock music there, and it's awesome all the way around. Going to any concerts anytime soon?
Nope.
If you get to go to the holidays, they do a holiday concert at the Heinz Hall. The Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra will knock your socks off. It's a great way to get into the holidays. But I digress, guys. I'm in a good mood today. I hope you are too. Guys, we're talking about mergers and acquisitions. What's the difference between a merger and an acquisition? Who can tell me the difference? Sam.
Merger, two becomes one, an acquisition, one absorbs the other.
Exactly correct. So Sam is absolutely correct in terms of the difference between those two aspects. So if we have a merger, two people coming together, or an acquisition, one company consuming another, where is the power more equally distributed this side of the room, a merger or an acquisition? Merger is correct. Absolutely. If you're acquired, you don't always have much of a say in the matter. But guys, things can happen too. We have a couple different kinds of mergers we can make. If we have what we refer to as a vertical merger, that means we got two companies that are in a similar kind of industry, but in different stages of development. So for example, if we had Tonkin Motorcycles, who's coming up with a new hybrid design that's going to be gas and electric powered together, and Honda, who's a very mature manufacturer of motorcycles, buys us or we merge with them, that's a vertical merger. A horizontal merger means we got two companies who are in the same industry at a reasonably similar level of development coming together. There are two big corporations in the automotive world who are talking about merging in the last couple of days. Who are they? I'll give you a hint. One's Fiat Chrysler. Who's the other company? Anybody ever heard of Peugeot? It's a French manufacturer. Peugeot, it's a fun car company to say. Although I have to tell you, I've got my reservations about how well this is going to work out for anybody. Because Peugeot does not have great reputations for quality. Fiat Chrysler, have they been having some quality issues too? Yeah, ask anybody who owns a 2019 Jeep Wrangler or Jeep Gladiator pickup. They're making some big mistakes here. But the resale is still amazing. Jeep, by the way, has the #1 brand loyalty of any car company in the world. even if they put out products sometimes that get recalled frequently. I'm not saying Wranglers aren't cool. I'd still like to have one, but I'd never have it as my only car. And we have a conglomerate merger. That means we got companies that are completely unrelated businesses who end up merging or being purchased. For example, Kraft Brands is a part of a larger corporation called R.J. Reynolds. What's R.J. Reynolds' main industry? I'm glad that none of you know this, because that means few of you are smoking. R.J. Reynolds is one of the biggest manufacturers of tobacco and cigarettes in the world, and they own a company that makes macaroni and cheese. If you're R.J. Reynolds, why do you want to own a macaroni and cheese company? Yes?
Mac and cheese doesn't have any poor societal connotations.
I agree. Sooner or later, all your cigarette customers are going to be dead. You want people buying something. So, and for God's sakes, I hope nobody in this room smokes. It's a terrible habit. I won't lecture you on other than to say I like you being here on the planet with us. I hope that you decide not to smoke. So what it comes down to, guys, again, if we've got a horizontal merger, if we're in the same industry, similar level of development, if we've got vertical merger, it means we're in different stages of development. And then we've got a conglomerate merger, which means we've got multiple companies that are in unrelated industries that come together. Has anybody ever heard of Yum Brands? Raise your hand if you've heard of Yum Brands. Really, nobody else has heard of them. All right, I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand if you've heard of any of these brands. Who here has heard of KFC? I love KFC. Who here has heard of Pizza Hut? Oh, how about Taco Bell? Who are my fans of Taco Bell? If you consider yourself a fan of Taco Bell, like my favorite thing in the world is the what they call the grilled stuffed burrito. Because when you get one of those things, it's roughly the size of an infant. Like when you get a grilled stuffed burrito, you want to cradle it in your arms. It feels like it's cooling and stuff, and then you unwrap it, you eat it anyway, even though it's the size of a baby. It feels like that in your stomach. All those things are owned by the same company. Do you know who owns Yum Brands? Pepsi. If you want to know why, for example, all those chains have Pepsi as their soft drink of choice, it's because Pepsi owns the whole damn thing. Who else does Pepsi own that we all love? It's a company that puts out very tasty, delicious three-cornered chips.
Doritos.
And who are they owned by?
Pepsi.
Frito-Lay. So Pepsi, Frito-Lay, same big company. So if you want to know, for example, why you can get a Dorito taco shell at Taco Bell, which is as American as it gets. Like, the only thing you could do to make that more American would be to, put hot wings on top of it and deep fry the whole thing. That would be more American. But that's as American as it gets, and it's all part of one big brand. Oh, man, I'm hungry now, man. I could go for some Taco Bell. Who has had their breakfast stuff? Do you like Taco Bell breakfast? If you haven't tried it, get up early and do it. They have a thing called an AM Crunch Wrap. It's like 600 or 700 calories. And it's like cheese and hash browns and beef and eggs all stuffed in a tortilla. And it's just it's like eating suicide, but it's so good. It is so good. So anyway, guys, I digress. We can also have what we refer to as a leveraged buyout. That means, for example, there are a group of investors who decide they want to try to buy your company. So let's say, for example, we have a bunch of shareholders for our company who all decided we want control. We're all going to get together and buy off enough shares of stock to be in control of the company. If we control the company, we control the board. If we control the board, we control the decisions that are being made by the company. So that's a way you can take over a company from the inside out. Well, we talked a lot about franchises, and we already started getting into Yum Brands for a little bit. Yum Brands is a great example of a company that does franchises. Who here has been to a franchise of some kind in the last week of their lives? Have you been to a fast food restaurant in the last week of your lives? Sadie, where did you go? Is it your favorite? Yeah, and by the way, Chick-fil-A has a very interesting way that they do business, by the way. When you are a Chick-fil-A franchisee, you're what they call an owner-operator. Chick-fil-A is very interesting in the fact that as opposed to McDonald's, they maintain a lot of control over how you do business. You've got to buy your supplies from a very limited supply network. You've got to operate by very stringent standards. And let me tell you, if you ever get a chance, Miss Bauman, who works in here, for example, her brother-in-law, her brother actually, owns the Chick-fil-A in Altoona. And the amount of training they give the people who run those franchises is unbelievable. They take their business very seriously. Has anybody in this room ever been to a dirty Chick-fil-A? It's very rare because they have that level of quality control. Anybody ever been to a dirty McDonald's? Yes, there are some bad McDonald's out there. You're not going to find as many bad Chick-fil-A's because they maintain a high level of control. But franchises are big and they employ lots of people, guys. I mean, in terms of some of the new franchises that are making news these days, these are things you probably never heard of because franchises are not just restaurants. This is a big one too, guys. This is called Amada Senior Care, and it's actually a franchise for starting your own nursing home. I'm not kidding, guys. And this is a big deal because people are living longer. If you, for example, go to Snap Fitness, or if you go to Planet Fitness, for example, gyms are franchises too. It's pretty amazing. By the way, guys, I know for most of you who are competitive athletes, for example, Planet Fitness is not the gym for you. For those of us who are middle-aged people attempting to not die, it's a great gym. What is Planet Fitness? That's my whole goal, is not to die. That is my goal in life, is to live as long as possible. I want to live long enough to outlive my enemies so I can go to their graves and laugh at them and say, see, I beat you. No, I don't really want to do that. That's kind of dark. Let's roll that back a little bit. Maybe a little. There are some people. I don't hate anybody, but there are some people I want to outlive. And there will be people in this life who don't like you for no good reason. If everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong. Because that means you're too easygoing. You got to stand for something. So if somebody hates you, that's okay. Anyway, what is Planet Fitness's business model? Can anybody tell me? How do they make money at $10 a month? Yes?
By like the average person.
Well, it's the average person for sure. Anybody else can add to that. Yes?
They expect people not to come.
That's exactly right. So let's think about it. Planet Fitness, this is great, says middle-aged man. I'm going to go there. I'm going to get in the same shape I was in when I was 25. I'm going to get down to 10% body fat. It's going to be amazing. 6 months later, middle-aged man still said, wow, I've gone to Planet Fitness once in the last 6 months, but it's only $10 a month. I'm going to get there at some point in time. The money still keeps coming out of his bank account, and in the meantime, Planet Fitness doesn't really have to do a whole lot of maintenance on their equipment because few people are using it. That's their whole business model. So sometimes you can create a business that makes money by people not using it. That's Planet Fitness. And by the way, for those of us who actually do use Planet Fitness, it's a really good deal for what we need it for. Some of the advantages. Let me ask you guys. We talked about Planet Fitness. We talked about Popeyes. We talked about Chick-fil-A. In your own words, what's an advantage of a franchise as opposed to starting your own business from scratch? Tim.
Everything you were set up pretty good, right? As the supply chain is already set up. Typically, same
It's all there, man. It's all there. It's all written up. So that's an advantage, guys. The advantage is that people know what Chick-fil-A is. Let's say, for example, I got my group over here. I got my group over here. On this side of the street, because I'm rich, I've started 2 restaurants. Over here, I got Chick-fil-A. Over here to this side of the street, I got Old Farmer Tonkin's Chicken Shack. They're right across the road from each other. All right. Chick-fil-A. What's a chicken sandwich cost at Chick-fil-A, guys? Let's $6 for a meal.
Yeah.
So over here at Old McTonkin's Chicken Shack, we're going to sell it for $4.50. We're going to sell a chicken sandwich deal. You guys are coming into Altoona where we're operating. How many of you are going to Old McTonkin's Chicken Shack? How many of you are going to Chick-fil-A? Say I got one loyal guy in here. Raise your hand if you're going to Chick-fil-A instead, though. Represent. That's my point. Brand recognition does a lot, guys. Some of the other things, too. If you're a franchisee, you still get to own the business. You still get to make money. You have lower failure rates because people recognize your brand. And you can even get assistance from companies that will help you finance and get good loan rates and everything else. Some of the disadvantages are you got to come up with the money right off the bat. You're also sharing the profit because you're paying a franchise fee every month to maintain this franchise. You also are not going to be able to do absolutely anything you want at any time. For example, if I own a McDonald's, am I free to go ahead and start up my own sandwich at that McDonald's? Hell no. Although the Big Mac started that way. I'm going to be beholden to whatever their regulations are. There's also something called the coattail effect, which means if I set up a McDonald's and there's a vacant lot next to it, there's probably going to be a KFC or a Burger King there before the year is out. So it comes down to all that stuff. And when we say fraudulent franchisers, what we mean by that, guys, there was an incident, this was about 10 years ago. For example, there was has anybody ever been to Keystone Steak and Lube? They have one in Johnson. You've been there, right? It's a wing joint. And there was one in State College, for example, where the franchisor quit paying their fees. And for a year, they operated without a license. They still were using the name, but they weren't actually a Keystone, or not Keystone, Quaker Steak. That's the one I'm thinking of. My brain is not working completely today. Quaker Steak Wings was not actually licensed in State College. We're seeing more diversity come in, and more females are starting to get into franchising, for example, which is a good thing, too. Some of the new things that are coming out, for example, Annie Ann's Pretzels or Build-A-Bear Workshop, those are female-started franchises. One of the things we're not seeing enough of, for example, is diversity in franchises. What it comes down to is most people who own franchises at this point are white males. So we want to change that. We want more women and people of color to be getting into these businesses as well. There are some people who run franchises out of their homes. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I will ask you a question, guys. Actually, I'm going to start on this side of the room today. I want to come back here. I haven't heard from this side of the room. What's the disadvantage of working out of your house? Like, what's challenging about working out of your house? If you had to work from home, what would be challenging? No friends? Yeah, it is. It's isolating. One of my favorite parts about coming into the office is I get to talk to people. I like people. I hope that comes across. I love being around people. It's isolating. You don't get ideas from other people. You have a hard time determining when your workday begins and ends. And you end up working longer hours sometimes than you would if you were working in a typical office. There's all kinds of home-based franchises. For example, has anybody here ever seen the glass repair or the dent services that will service cars? Some people do that right out of their home, for example. So, we're actually going to finish up this section before we take our next question. I think you all realize pretty well at this point in time that the quickest growing segment of retail is online, and a lot of people are starting their businesses as e-businesses or online businesses as well. Makes perfect sense. And the franchises, whether it's East Bay or whether it is other companies that are selling online, it makes sense. So guys, in terms of the predictions, last year, 35% of all e-commerce in the United States was e-commerce. And almost half of that stuff happened on smartphones. At this day and time, if you are not focusing on mobile as part of your environment for selling, you're making a mistake. That being said, guys, we're going to stop for a second. I got to catch my breath before we continue, and I would like a question or comment from anywhere in the room. Ma'am.
If you have like your own store and then you have an online store, is that like franchising or is that different?
That would still, if you were the sole proprietor, it would still be a sole proprietorship. Now, if you were allowing other people to start up versions of your store, it would be a franchise.
If you started up other versions of your store, what would that?
I would still say that's a sole proprietorship. Yeah, but that's an excellent question, by the way. Yes, ma'am.
It's kind of off topic, but I don't know if this is new, but I just saw on the phone last night that Dunkin' Donuts now has like an Impossible
Sausage.
Sausage. Yeah, and Snoop Dogg is like advertising for them.
Really, Snoop Dogg is pitching plant-based meat.
He like was an employee for them.
Wow. I'm trying to think of my favorite Snoop Dogg song. How that sausage, sausage was the taste that they gave me. That would be like what he would say to them. So seriously, Snoop, that was my era. That was 90s hip hop. Like him and Dr. Dre, The Chronic was like one of the classics of hip hop, one of the best albums ever. So Snoop Dogg's pitching plant-based sausage. I never thought I'd see the day. I never thought I'd see the day when Ice Cube was making family movies either, but that's the way it is. The world changes. How many people here, by show of hands, would give plant-based sausage a try? I'll try it, man. If it's better for the planet, I'll give it a shot. Because you know what? If you knew it was in a hot dog, you probably wouldn't eat one of those either. This can't be any worse than a hot dog. Am I right? Absolutely right. Don't think about what's in hot dogs. Just don't ask questions. By the way, how many of you are from Central Pennsylvania? All right, let's be honest here. Raise your hand if you've eaten Scrapple. All right. Scrapple is the one food on planet Earth where the name is what it is. Yes?
Scrapple.
Care to elaborate?
Is it like
Guys, here's my definition of scrapple. You guys can agree or disagree. A scrapple is hot dog without the pretense. It's not pretending to be what it is.
It's good though.
It is.
When you fry it,
It is
up,
good.
you put a little bit of syrup on it. It's great.
People love it. It's like, people who eat Spam, who sneer at Scrapple, ought to re-examine their life values. That's what I say. That's what I say. Well, yeah, I love the twists and turns this conversation has taken today. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. In fact, I want you to hold that thought for a second because I'm feeling in a good mood. I got to check on one thing out here, and if this works out, we're going to do a little experiment. You remember that the other day when we were in class, Miss Bauman came in and made an appearance in class. Will you guys come with me one at a time? I want to form a line, and we're going to go through Miss Bauman's office and say good morning to her. Will you guys come up? I'm serious. Follow me here. So what I would like you to do is one at a time. You're going to follow in. You're just going to look in her office, wave, and say good morning to Miss Bauman.
we're stuck?
Buen India. I have a two where that was like. I just didn't want to get all of it. That's true. There's your mom in there. That's the best. Jesus, he. There you go. That's awesome. Not just hard. Shut
Thank you for helping me out with that. All right, we're gonna move on and keep our brisk pace going this morning. And guys, the bottom line. Last week, we went to 2018. This is your takeaway message. Last week, 40% of all seasonal sales happened during Cyber Week last year. So 40% of all sales during the holiday season took place during the week after Thanksgiving. Pretty big deal. If we start looking at U.S. markets, for example, U.S. franchises, our neighbor to the north is our most popular place to franchise U.S. brands. By the way, there's a couple of iconic U.S. and Canadian brands that are now the same company. I'll give you a hint. One makes coffee and one makes burgers. Who are both the same company? One was Canadian, one was American. Now they're both Canadian. Anybody have a guess? It's not Dunkin' and it's not McDonald's. Anybody here at Tim Hortons? Tim Hortons and Burger King are the same company now. So we also, by the way, guys, have very popular franchises around the world. Can anybody guess in the Middle East what's the most popular U.S. franchise? Any guesses? In the Middle East, think about all the franchises we have. Yes.
McDonald's.
It's a good guess. It's not McDonald's. It is, however, Finger Licking Good. What brand is that? It's KFC. It's the most popular brand in the Middle East. So it's pretty interesting. Stuff like H&R Block's going international these days too. If you want to know what the highest performing franchises are in general, based on total revenue, here you have it. Dunkin' Donuts is killing it these days. And by the way, they're not called Dunkin' Donuts anymore. What do we just call them? Just Dunkin'. Dunkin' brands. Here's my question, and I know I'm doing a lot of polling today because I'm feeling like moving. Hope you are too. Guys, how many of you like Dunkin' Donuts? So what's the best part about Dunkin' Donuts? Why do people in your age group like Dunkin' so much? I'm sorry? It is definitely cheaper. Do you like your coffee too? The iced coffee, that's the thing. What else do you guys like about Dunkin'? It's funny to me that we're this health-conscious kind of society now. You know, we're trying to get into plant-based meats and everything, but we all love donuts. A donut, in much the same way that a grilled stuffed burrito makes me happy from the inside out. There's just something awesome about a donut. A donut is like deep fried love being handed to you, saying, "We love you very much. Have this donut." Yes. Oh my goodness, I have. That's not even fair, though. That's not even fair. Does anybody know Mamie's in Martinsburg? You been? What have you had there?
I did it. It's like putting drug prints to this.
And it weighs like 15 pounds when they bring it out? Yeah, it's amazing. And you got to be there by like 8 in the morning. You don't get to see it. Guys, if you have not been to this place, I'm not lying and I'm not exaggerating. If you get a cookies and cream donut there, the donut literally weighs a pound. They sell 1 pound donuts. When you bite into this thing, it is like everything you've ever loved hitting your brain at the same time. It's that kind of thing. It's a sugar rush. It's carbs. It's wonderful. Like, how many of you total have been there? Just 2 of you? 3 of you. Gosh, you know what I need to do? I need to figure this out to see if I can somehow get some fresh Mamie's donuts in here and share them with you guys. I'd love that. I'd love that. But if I brought donuts, by show of hands, who would try? Okay, we're gonna figure this out. Even if that means if I gotta ask my wife because she works a flexible work schedule, if she will do a donut delivery for me. Actually, you know what? Since I'm in a goofy mood, are you guys okay with me being a little goofy today? Is that all right? All right. Here's what I'm gonna do, guys. I'm gonna actually put my camera out, and I'm gonna ask you guys on 3 to say, "Mrs. Tonkin, please bring us some donuts." Will you guys do that for me? All right. And all right. All right, Mrs. Tonkin, my class has something they would like to say to you, and this is on 3. We're going to go on 1, 2, 3.
Mrs. Tonkin, please bring us donuts.
That's pretty convincing. I think you guys may have this going on. All right, we're going to cover 1 or 2 more slides because you guys have given me some really good energy today. We're going to get you out of here a little early today. You guys, a cooperative. Who here has ever heard of an electric co-op, for example? That means you own it. If you are a part of an electric co-op, you own the company. They have a billion members worldwide. We're talking co-ops sometimes for water, for electricity, for utilities of all kinds, even internet service providers. Co-ops means that the people who are using a particular service also serve as the owners for it. And that gets us actually to the review section, guys. But what we're going to do, we're going to start our review on Monday. And I'm going to give you, get this, 7 minutes of your life I'm giving back. Have a wonderful day, guys.